do, 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 do. Yeah, I'm live. Hi. I know it's been a super long time. I have been doing what I wanted to do, basically, and I think that's something that we all need to spend some time doing in our lives, is giving ourselves permission to do what we want to do. And so this conversation is about human design. And it's going to be the first of my many videos probably on human design, but I will be doing other videos too, even though everyone around me must be super bored of me talking about human design by now. Though some of them are not so super bored because everybody loves to talk about themselves, and generally we're talking about their charts. I have recently started learning as quickly as I possibly can, which as a projector 1-3 is obsessive, super obsessive, learning about a system called human design, whereby we take your birth details and we plug them through a system to generate a chart that gives us an indication of the energy system that you are individually running. And this system is a combination of the I Ching, the Kabbalah, astrology. I've forgotten one. Something in there. Astrology, I Ching. I've forgotten one. It's really bugging me. It's because I've got a camera on me, I think. A bit of genetic coding, a bit of quantum physics. The whole thing where neutrinos pass through matter is quite interesting. If you want to listen to the discussion on why you're being affected at the time of your birth by the sun and by very, very teeny tiny particles with very small amounts of matter that are actually able to pass through you as you're being born. And then, of course, that's also happening throughout the day. So how is the sun and the alignment of the planets actually affecting you? Well, it's actually through the way these neutrinos are passing through you with that sunlight and that pressure from the outside system. So there is actually a scientific basis through which we can now justify astrology and now this sort of much more complex system called human design, which came about in 1987. And the reason that it's, the chakra system, that was the other one I was thinking of. And it's really about us going from the 7 chakra system being to somewhere around 1781, us becoming a 9-centered being. And so this new human design chart shows these 9 centers and shows how they're activated or rather defined or undefined within our chart, and how we can play in energies or how we're fixed in certain energies. And then also we can overlay current charts of what's happening in the solar system and the universe to actually imprint on us as well. What is super interesting about the system is that for those of us who are non-energy types, when we read our charts, for us it's a revelation. And here's why. As a projector, which is what I am, I've spent my whole life trying to be a generator. And a generator is someone who gets energy by doing. And in particular, if they do something that's in alignment with their authority, which is their decision-making process. So if they do something that brings them joy, they're not just going to get energy, they're going to get an abundant source of energy where they just keep going and going and going and going. So when you find a generator who's found their thing, there's no stopping them, and they don't want to stop. And actually, it's good for them to move in this way. For a projector, we're not designed as a workhorse, a generator is. Projector is designed as a guide. And interestingly enough, in my life, I found my way quite authentically, without knowing I was a projector, to being a guide. And I think I was pretty lucky. When I ran my parents' charts, I found both of my parents were projectors, one classic projector, one mental projector, and one energy projector. And as a result, I think they intuitively gave me what I needed, which was very lucky for me. That didn't stop, however, the outer world from programming me. So I very much tried to become a generator because I was told that that was what I needed to do. So were they. And so they had a similar program running as well, where they were told that. And as a result, I think they've done amazingly well, considering the fact that I think I've watched them both struggle with their energy their whole lives. And I certainly watched my father, who's not with us anymore, become very bitter, which, if you're a projector, bitterness is your indication you're living against your design, your energy system. And I can relate to this. When I heard bitterness was the thing, I'm like, man, there are some times I'll just get stuck on something. And what happens to me is I'll go out and I'll try and pick a generator's job to do. And I'll be going along for a while, I'll really enjoy it. And then I'll get to a point where I'm just so exhausted, and I'm so exhausted I'm near tears. And I'm also I have a very sensitive chart, but a projector is a sensitive person anyway, but I'm a hypersensitive being, according to my chart. And I would describe this like, when I walk into a room full of people, I can feel everything. and the thought of going to a party for a long time has been daunting. And it's not because I don't like a party, and it's not because I don't enjoy myself when I'm there, but that I have this feeling like it's work in a way. And we all enjoy work too at some stages, but it's like I really have to be in the right place to go into a room full of people. It's a little bit different when I'm teaching and I'm on a stage, or even though I don't like to be on the stage, I like to get down in my yoga classes and move about. I'm just going to pause and say, hey, if you aren't liking and subscribing and you're still here right now, you should probably do that now. So now is the time to like and subscribe, because I haven't lost you yet. But yeah, as a, in a group environment, and I'm teaching transcendental dance now, and a friend of mine who's also a projector actually, and a very, very sensitive, beautiful man, said, you must feel this anxiety I felt today getting ready for this party. And he said, you must feel this every time you go to do a group thing. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I can spend a whole week getting ready for one event because I know I'm going into that group setting, and it's a lot of work for me. And here's why. For those of you who aren't familiar with the projector system, for those of you who are, it's going to sound very familiar in some respects. I'm taking that energy into my system, and then I'm amplifying it out. Right. And I'm very sensitive as well. I've got an interesting sensitivity line in my chart. So what's also happening is all of that is heightened again, basically. And when I work with people doing the dance, I'm looking right through them, and I can see what's happening with them, and I'm responding to that too. It's like they've turned up, so I've got an invitation to go in. So be very aware of that when you come to one of my classes. I will see that as an invitation that I can work with your energy, is the best way to put that. I will, and same with yoga as well. The yoga is much more chill. It's a lot easier for me teaching a yoga class. It doesn't take as much out of me. In fact, it's almost like a homecoming, the yoga setup versus the transcendental dance setup. But yeah, when you come into my class, it's an invitation for me to step in and work with your energy. I am, however, feeling for when you take that invitation away. And as a projector, we must wait for the invitation. We can initiate an invitation. We can kind of check out. We can kind of go, if you want, I can come and do such and such for you. So it's like we can kind of ask them if they would like to invite us, I guess is the way to put it. And so I do that sometimes. I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing this thing. If you want, by all means, let me know. And you're welcome. You're welcome to come. You're welcome to join in. You're welcome to ask me. I would be willing to do that if you were willing to invite me. And I find the system really works for me because the person is inviting, they are asking, they are allowing. But there is an interesting thing that I feel when I feel someone block me and they take the invitation away. It's also interesting, something that I've noticed is when they take the invitation away, but energetically their spirit doesn't. And I've had that before. And so you have the human melting down, but the spirit is learning something. And so that's a very fine art. I don't even know how to explain how I notice that, but I notice that sometimes there are some where I push, and there are some where I'm like, no, the invitation is definitely not there, and I step back. Having lived my entire life as a projector and only just finding out at 41. Well, like I said, for us non-energy types, what a revelation it is to read our chart and go, oh my God, I'm not broken. Oh my God, this world that's 70, 80% generators that fit very well into a generating world, a planned world. I'm not like them. That's why what they're doing doesn't work for me. That's why they're getting away with it, even if they're living somewhat against their authority. They're getting away with it is because the system is somewhat more designed for them. Whereas for me, I get to a certain point, I'm just exhausted. I can't do anything. I don't want to deal with anyone. And actually, the resentment, not the resentment, the bitterness in this case, the bitterness comes out as I can't deal with any of you. I'm an energy projector, so it's very easy for me to get carried away on my energy. And I'm a very sensitive energy projector. So when I'm riding off some lovely generator's beautiful fuel, I can get very high on it. And then I can feel my adrenal system because I've got a lot of pressure coming up into my emotional center from my adrenal root chakra. I can feel my adrenal center starting to take over. And that's when I'm exhausted. I've now pushed the line, right? And so there's an exhaustion and there's like a crack addict feeling to the whole process. And as a result of this, at 17, I was starting to get issues with my adrenal system. And at 20, I met my guru, who was an Osho-aligned guru, and he recognized straight away that my kidneys were taxed. They were really having a hard time, and the adrenals are, of course, attached to the kidneys. So in the Chinese medical system, they look more at the kidney in relation to the adrenals. And so this mass hormonal center takes a big hit in my case. And so again, going to a party may be the last thing I need at the time if my system is already a bit down. I've spent a good portion of what's created me in working with chronic disease trying to unpick this adrenal problem. And around the time that I got to about 34, I started to realize that the way I was going to live my life was to give myself permission to rest, no matter what anyone expected from me. And no matter what I'd promised even. And so I stopped promising things. I started being like, oh, I would love to do that 3 weeks from now, but let's check with me on the Friday just to make sure that I'm good for the Saturday. So it's not a yes yet. It's a yes when we get there, or a no when we get there. And as a result of this, I started to free myself up, and I started to move away from the guilt of letting people down, because that was a really difficult thing for me. Was it just got to the point where I just couldn't turn up. And I didn't want people to feel unloved. And so I would feel very guilty about that. But I just knew I couldn't. And it's a hard thing to accept when the whole world is telling you that the way to be successful is to go out there and get them, to set yourself aside and to generate. And I'm just not built that way. And it's not sensitive to what I need. And it was making me sick. And if you know what I know about how chronic disease works, adrenal fatigue is, along with a lot of stomach problems as well, but that wasn't so much my problem. But adrenal fatigue was definitely an indicator, and we can argue about whether adrenal fatigue is a real thing or not. I don't really care. Whatever you want to call it. It's an indicator of like pre-chronic disease. So I learned a lot as a result of going there. And I learned a lot about how to put my system together. And then when I dated someone who was very damaged and very controlling and manipulative and unfortunately protecting themselves in that way, and I didn't feel free, I started to see how my system was getting hit in another way. And all of these things were showing me how I was living against my design, how I was living against the energy system that I picked on my way into this world. And as I have lined up with it, the funny thing is that things started falling into place for me, and I started enjoying my life more. And it doesn't mean I don't screw it up. Every now and again, I'll promise myself to something, or I'll push where I should drop back, or I'll invite myself where I should wait to be invited by somebody else. And whenever I've been invited, I have felt great success, and that's the design of the projector. Wait to be recognized for the genius that you are. Wait to be recognized for the special skills that you have, and then wait to be invited. And then through your authority, decide whether that invitation is right for you. Don't just accept every invitation, because you're going to exhaust yourself again. You want to pick and choose where you put your energy. And when you've picked badly, that bitterness is going to eventually rise up. That exhaustion is going to come out, which is one of the ways the bitterness can present itself is exhaustion. Because I work with people and I'm designed really, really good for one-on-one, I also have to be careful to take time for myself. So put a little bit out, step back, put a little bit out, step back. And this is, if I can get this flow going through my day, I have a really good day. If I back to back too many clients, I get to the end of the day, I'm like a zombie. So very, very important for me to find balance and to make space. And the projector needs space. So, as a child, I was very tuned into this. It's very protective over my room. And I could feel, I would go into my room and I'd be like, Mum, you've been in my room. She'd be like, no, I haven't. She knew she was in trouble as well, because my mum's also a projector. And so I think she had an understanding of what I was talking about, but I was also like the child, and she's the one paying for the house. So, I was sort of stepping in and saying to her, hey, you've been in my space and you're not allowed to. Like, I was very clear about it. You don't go in my room without my permission. And ideally, you don't go in my room without me being there, because the sensitivity of the space really mattered to me. And I would sit on the edge of my bed. She'd say, no, I haven't. Sit on the edge of my bed. And I would sit there, and I would sit in the room, and I would sit, and I would sit, and I would sit. And I would scan around until I could feel what she had touched. And be like, you've been at my moisturizer. And she'd be like, like totally caught, basically. But also, what a funny dynamic for a child to be disciplining a parent over space, and also for the parent to kind of get it, which I think I was very lucky with. Even though projectors are only 20% of the world, and then you've got your different types of projectors. There were 3 in my household, and 2 of them were my parents. I have a sister, she's a manifesting generator. So, from what I can tell. So, yeah, it was quite an interesting childhood. And I often say that my childhood was one where I felt like my father really understood me. And he was the only person who ever really understood me. And my dad was a mental projector, so he's literally like a reflection of myself. And that there was something golden about my childhood. And I think it was because I was given a lot of space, and I was allowed to somewhat develop in line and in accordance with my energy type. I still think I was conditioned. I still went off and tried to do law. And what happened was my emotional authority just bombed me and just went, no, 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 this is horrible. Don't do this anymore. I remember bawling my eyes out one day in the law library with a friend of mine. And she said, we should just move to England. Just throw it all in, we'll move to England. You can, marry my brother and go there. And my mother's English, so I didn't need to marry a brother. But by the end of the day, my emotions had settled, and I went, yeah, let's go. Let's absolutely do that. And I just gave up everything, and I got on a plane and I went, and I started on a journey where I met my guru, and I traveled to India. And every time I tried to be a generator, I was always doing these other things that were to do with guiding and coaching and teaching. And both of my parents were physical teachers. One was a sensei, one was a yogi, and then an aerobics or jazzercise aerobics, and then personal trainer. And they were great teachers, really, really great teachers. My mum's super good at putting out energy, but also very good at teaching. She used to teach me stuff driving home about food, driving home in the car at the end of the day from the gym that we had. My dad he would structure everything so beautifully. He had his 3 minor and 3 major principles of jiu-jitsu, and to this day I haven't forgotten them. They're embedded into me, and I started doing the same thing when I started teaching. So I had this incredible guidance from these 2 people without them probably even really knowing. And if that isn't karma, I don't know what is. And if that isn't chosen, well, man, that's opportunistically random. Like what a lucky situation to end up with these 2 great beings to be the start of the first part of my life. But I struggled with my energy. I struggled with my energy up until a few years ago. And then I struggled with my energy with others because I had to learn boundaries. And I think as a projector, you really have to learn boundaries, because you're constantly wanting to get inside and help people and guide them. And it's like, well, first, wait for the invitation. And then second, is this an invitation you want to accept? I think that's probably a lesson I'm still learning, but I did learn it fairly hard in the last few years by trying to work with someone who just couldn't do it, you know. Um, no matter how much they might have wanted to, something in them stopped them, and there wasn't really the invitation there for me to help them. And there was also a disrespect to my energy and the way I work. And I think that's something that no matter what type you are, no matter what human being you are, you should be respected for who you are and the way your energy works. And I'm not someone who wants to get up and run all day. I want to get up, go for a run, and then I want to sit down and have a nice lunch and chill out and do something relaxing and lie in the sun, read a book. And then maybe I want to go for another walk, or I want to do some yoga. And no, I don't want to kickbox every day. I used to think I wanted to do that, but I want to move every day. But I want to move in accordance with my energy system every day. And sometimes that's just a walk, or just some yoga, or just a little kundalini, or sometimes it's not much. And other days I'm flying high and I'm going for it. A lot of people talk about being jealous of the generator. So the generator has this sacral energy center that churns, it like creates energy for them. And they just, the more they do, the more fueled they are, the more they can go. And with my other friends, of which I have quite a few who are not an energy type, there's a jealousy or a deep respect and awe around this beautiful creature, of which it's, 70% of the world, right? That can just, once they get going, they don't need to stop. The rest of us are going, man, can we just have a cup of tea? My mum and I, we go out with my sister, the manifesting generator. My sister's like, we're on our way home and she's turning off to go somewhere else. I'm like, no, it's tea time. It's a cup of tea time for the English old little ladies here, Because my mum and I are actually quite aligned. We're always, do you know what's funny, actually, with her and I, when we want to rest, it's almost in line with each other. It's like rest time, tea time, sit down and just chill time. And we're like, and then we'll go again, But it's very special for us to have these energy types in our life that respect our energy. And I was talking with a friend today, and she's a manifester. And the manifest is such a special energy, 8% of the world, right? And they can just magically make things happen when they're working in alignment and in accordance with their system. And she has, I believe, a generator husband. I haven't run his chart yet. I can probably have a go without the time of birth and get a rough idea. But I can just see he's a generator, and he clearly gets off on moving his energy in that way. And, she just lives in awe of him. I've heard her speak so beautifully about how amazing it is, how he can just work and work and work and work and work some more. And she has that deep respect for how hard he works. And it's almost the way she speaks about it, it's almost a misunderstanding to me of what she brings to the pie. She's the magic. She's the one who can take that incredible workhorse and focus it in on whatever the hell she likes, and it's going to happen. There's nothing that's going to get in their way as a team. And we were talking about that today, actually, and I said, in the last 7 years, is there anything you guys have set your mind on that hasn't happened? It's like they did their 10-year plan in 5 years. Wow, that's the beauty of a manifestor, right? But she's a non-energy type, and he has respect for that. He gives her room to rest. He sees that there's this sensitive being that can come out and play and be really energetic and all of that sort of stuff, but also needs to step back and rest and take her time out. And her and I align. We're very similar on that thing of like going to the party is a lot of energy to deal with, and sometimes it's daunting. And too many people in a row is a lot to deal with, and sometimes it's daunting. So it was really a revelation for me to read my chart. And then I had a reading done by Chayton Parkin. And I haven't had a full reading done yet. I just had a quick chat with him, and then I signed up to his course, and I'm learning from him. I'm probably already driving him nuts. I've only dropped in on one meeting so far where I've bombarded him with a lot of complicated questions, because I'm also an investigating martyr, which means that I'm all about the deep dive into the thing, the 1-3. And I'm the projector, so I'm interested in the bigger picture. I'm interested in the whole thing, and I'm interested in everybody else more so than myself. I'm also interested in myself, though. I am a self-centered being too. And he said to me, you're this incredibly sensitive being, and you're here as a guide, and you're here as a high-level diagnostic. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because ever since I was a child, I could watch someone walk down the street and see things in their energy fields. And I was talking to a client of mine the other day, and said to her, oh, well, because we were talking about the system, and I said, well, I'm meant to be a diagnostic, and she said, oh, well, you totally are that. You take one look at me and you tell me all these things. And that's what also is really interesting to me, is that as this thing is read to me, it's like I've already been on the path. I haven't been able to avoid it, because I was living in alignment to some extent. There's still programming to unpick, but I was living in alignment to some extent. So I've been learning to be a diagnostic since I was 20. And actually, I was born into a family whereby I was starting to get the initial skills of that diagnostic system from them. And I could always look at a body and see things about it. I could look at a palm and jump into a person's energy and start reading the person. And that's the same thing with this tool. I can start reading your chart and jump into your system if you let me, if you invite me. And I think that invitation is really important, because it's a respect thing too. And we all need to learn to be respectful, and so do I. It's a super beautiful system. I think the sad thing for me is that generators, some of them are really interested. Because now that I'm deep diving, I'm of course reading charts left, right, and center for people, but to practice and to experience and to see what I'm seeing energetically on paper and translate it back. So I'm very quickly learning to recognize energy types, or hitting certain energy types like the manifestor, where I'm like, I know this person is an energy type, but I don't think they're a projector. And of course, I see a lot more projectors than I see a reflector or a manifestor, because they're more common. And so whenever I have that question mark, so far I've found a manifestor, except for I found one reflector. I'm super excited because they're super rare. My dad was also a question mark for me, and he, of course, is a super rare projector type. But what's actually sad for me is I think in some way, like, this system still isn't known that well yet. And that's why I'm talking about it today, because we all need to talk about the system more, because every time I do someone's chart, it's so interesting to see their reaction to what I tell them, because it speaks to them. This is what is affecting them. They're living this. They're living in this system. And when they live against it, what I'm telling them is aligned. And when they're living in alignment with it, what I'm telling them is aligned. And they recognize it. They're recognizing themselves when I tell them what's in their chart. And then I can tell them other things that maybe they never cognated, or they never quite intellectually, consciously recognized. And as I mention it, their consciousness is going, that's what it is, right? Or, oh my God, that's so true. I just never put it into words like that. But also I can from there intuitively jump in and read a little bit further, which is really interesting, because I'm already starting to do that. But again, back to the sadness is the generator and the manifesting generator. So 33 and 37% of the population, respectively, if they're hugely frustrated, which is a indicative emotion of not living in alignment with their design, they're usually more open to listening to what I have to say. But if they're not really frustrated, or if they're a little bit shut down for whatever reason, or really heavily programmed, they're kind of not that interested in listening beyond the basics. It's like, oh, what star sign am I? Oh, I'm an Aquarius. Cool. What does that mean? Okay, 5 minutes, I'm done, And that's sad to me, because I feel that the system is an opportunity to deprogram. And you will see a lot of people doing work around deprogramming using the human design system to help empower people. And so when the generator doesn't, or the manifesting generator doesn't want to know about their own energy design, I feel like they're going to go along stumbling and screwing it up and all that sort of stuff and not quite living in alignment. And I think one of the things that's so important about this alignment system, hello, whoever is watching, I can't see who it is, about this alignment system is that it works for the collective when we all do it. So the more we start living in alignment with our energy system, the more it's all going to come together. And most of us need each other. I need to be recognized and invited for the skills and the specialty that I have. A generator or a manifesting generator needs to respond to something. And maybe I, when I'm invited to give advice, to be the guide, can give them something to respond to. Maybe they get their own thing that's going on around them. Maybe they do manage to draw something into them to respond to. Maybe another generator or manifester comes along and gives them something to respond to. But first they need to recognize how they're going to make that decision, because you don't want to say yes to everything. You need to line up with your authority, how you make decisions. Are you a splenic responder? Are you or a splenic decision maker? Are you a gut? Yes or no person? Are you like myself, an emotional authority, where we have to wait for things to settle? And if you're a reflector or like my father, a mental projector, you've got to wait for a full moon cycle. Your authority is external. Imagine waiting a full month before you can get back to someone on something. But they need to do this, because otherwise they may tie themselves up in something that then brings about, for the reflector, disappointment, for the projector, bitterness, for the generator or the manifesting generator, frustration, and for the manifester, when you try to control them and oppress them, anger. So this system is a really cool system, and I recommend you check it out. I am reading charts, and at this stage I'm reading charts on request and by invitation. So if you'd like a chart read, we can talk about how we want to work that. But I'm very much practicing. So I am at the moment, though, in a space where I am reading so many charts at once that I may have to charge a very small fee for that. And I do want to let people know that I'm just playing at this stage. But it will be something that I go on to do more full on, because I recognize the system as a diagnostic tool. And then beyond that, I recognize that it's an empowerment tool. And when people are empowered, they don't need diagnosis, because there won't be any room for dis-ease. So I think that's also really important too. Frustration breeds cancer, for example. So we have a lot of cancer in our society, and we have a lot of generators. And I suggest that we have a lot of enslaved generators and manifesting generators. So if you're struggling with disease and energy issues in your body and just dissatisfaction or disappointment or any of those things in your life, I recommend that you check this out. It is a tool I'm already using. If you're wanting help in those areas of chronic disease and energy, etc., I think any human design reader will help you, but my specialty is holistic health. So please, by all means, give me a bell. And it is what I was designed for, is to help others diagnostically live a better life and get out of dis-ease. So thank you so much. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I won't do them all on human design, but since I'm studying this, and it is the thing that I'm obsessed with at the moment, being the obsessive little 1-3 that I am, and I do also have a life theme of explanation, so I am here to explain everything to everyone. Keep in mind that it will be coming up a little bit, and I will be talking about different things that I find, maybe about individual cases. Be happy to perhaps do someone's reading without mentioning their name online and let them know. I'm open to invitation on that as well. So by all means, make requests, get in touch with me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and here, of course. And I'm looking at starting a Rumble channel as well, which at this stage we'll probably have different content to here. So I'll probably do lives there and lives here. I'm not sure yet. Have a great day. Zen Warrior signing out.